everyone. Thanks for coming. Oh, that was nice feedback. Today I'm going to talk to you about a project that I'm working on. It's funded by one of the CAMD team-level research grants. So this is an exciting opportunity to tell you what we've done with all that money. It's a project that is collaborative. I work with Corey Murphy, who's a master's student over in health informatics. Andrea Parker is faculty member over in CCIS, and Jessica Speed's a postdoc in communication studies. All right, before I can get into the kind of meat of this talk, we need to just do some grounding on a theoretical concept that's important in my work. So I study children's social networks, and by social networks, I don't necessarily mean online social networks like Facebook and Twitter, although that's one example of a social network. By social networks, I mean all the things, all the interactions that we have where we're embedded into groups with other people. So we can conceive of these as networks, and one of the things that we get from being in networks is social capital. So social capital is all the stuff we get because we know other people and we have good relationships with them. So that can be physical stuff. One of the canonical examples is that you can borrow a lawnmower or a ladder from your neighbor if you have a good relationship with him or her. It can also be kind of intangible stuff like social support or advice. Another canonical example is leads on job opportunities. So for the undergrads in the room, that might be particularly salient. So social capital universally is associated with youth success in a variety of different domains: education, careers, emotional well-being, physical health, and the feeling of social support. However, unfortunately, in the research, low-income minority communities have less social capital overall, so they tend to have smaller networks with fewer resources, and there are social norms that have emerged that discourage people to ask for and to give favors, which is problematic because arguably those communities are the ones who most need the benefits from being in social networks. Based on some past research that I've done, it got to thinking that may be true. That may be true that you have smaller networks with fewer resources, but you're kind of making the presumption that you've optimized your ability to extract resources from your network. So if you look up here, we're assuming that people in these communities have networks like the one on the left, where you can see exactly who's in your network and you can articulate that and you can go to them when you need help. And I'm going to argue for you, based on the research that we've done, that the networks are actually something more like the one on the right, where you have a fuzzy idea, you have a good idea of some of the people, and then a fuzzy idea of some other people who might be around you, and you just need a little nudge in order to figure out who those people are. So I think that we might be able to improve outcomes by improving access to social capital, by coming up with ways to nudge people to remember those sort of fuzzy grayed out dots that are up there. The picture's not showing up. This is a map of Boston. I did this research with 6th to 8th graders at an after-school program in from Roxbury and Dorchester. Most of the students were Black or Dominican, and almost all were on free or reduced price lunch programs, which is an indication of socioeconomic status. All right, so this is what we did. This is a really famous exercise in network science. You tend to do it at the end of classes, MBA classes in particular, where you ask people to come up with a personal board of directors. So this exercise is really about getting people to articulate the resources in their own networks. And typically you frame it around some goal. So you say you have some goal that you're working towards in the future. We want you to make a list of the different people that you know who can help you achieve that goal. Similar to a board of directors for a company, only you're going to create the board of directors for you personally. And when I asked the kids to do this, we started out with this kind of response. So I said, think of the people, and then articulate what it is that they're going to do for you. So a lot of the kids put down something like my mom, who can give advice and love, my girlfriend, who will give encouragement and love, and Jesus. There were a lot of religious figures in their lists. And then they kind of stopped there. So this is really consistent with the research that we've done prior in these low-income communities, that basically you can't think of all that many people, and there's a lot of kind of redundancy and not a ton of branching out in terms of social capital. So did some brainstorming in our little group and said, what can we do? Is there a way that we can get them to think about other people? And we thought, aha, we can transform this from kind of active recall which is difficult, cognitively difficult to do. So if we ask you to recall the people in your network, right, we're basically asking you to navigate that kind of fuzzy network picture that I told you to a recognition one. So if we can give them kind of hooks to remember who the people are in their network, then we make the task a lot less cognitively challenging. And the way that we did that is we inverted the way that we did the questionnaire. So instead of saying, think of the people and then think of the skills, we said, think of the skills and the resources that you're going to need to achieve your goal, and then map back to the people that you know. And lo and behold, when we did it that way, they almost all doubled the length of the list of people on their board of directors. So this proved to be a really effective way to get students to think more strategically and more accurately about their social networks. And I think this also shows evidence that they actually do have richer social networks than the previous literature has indicated. These people exist in their networks, they're just having difficulty remembering them. So, conclusions. We really actually can't say whether or not it's the case that low-income minority youth have fewer resources than their middle-class peers. We have no way to speak to that, but we do think that they have resources that are kind of hidden in plain sight, and that there are techniques that we can use to improve their network thinking. That's what we're calling it. And teaching kids to think strategically and accurately about their networks may help them overcome some of the limitations that may be inherent in the kind of structure that they're embedded in. So this research is ongoing. We're now working with a parallel sample of middle and upper middle class kids to verify, to see if we can find latent differences in their networks. We're also continuing to work with those kids over in Roxbury and Dorchester on different types of interventions to see if we can find other things that help them improve their network thinking. So thanks to everyone for listening. Thanks to CAMD for the grant to do this research. You can tweet at me if you have questions.